You wake in the dark, the fire has burned down to orange coals, everyone around you is still, and you are wide awake. For a moment, you feel that small flicker of panic that every modern human knows too well, the sense that something has gone wrong, that you are broken, that you should be asleep and you are not. But here's the strange part. For most of human history, waking in the middle of the night was not a problem. It was not a symptom. It was not insomnia. It was simply what the night was. You have been taught that sleep is a single, unbroken block. 8 hours, lights off to lights on, one clean line from evening to morning. You measure yourself against it. You lie awake at 3 in the morning and feel like a failure. You reach for your phone to check how much time you have left before the alarm, and the checking makes it worse. But your ancestors would not have understood the anxiety at all, because the way you have been told to sleep is not the way humans slept for the overwhelming majority of the time we have existed. So what did ancient humans actually do when they woke in the dark and could not fall back asleep? The answer changes how you think about your own restless nights. Let's start with a myth, because there is a big one to clear away first. The story goes like this. Modern life has stolen our sleep. Screens, electric light, caffeine, stress, all of it has robbed us of the deep, long, natural rest our ancestors enjoyed. Somewhere back in the firelit past, the story says, people slept like the dead 9 or 10 peaceful hours, perfectly in tune with the sun. It is a beautiful story. It is also wrong. In 2015, a team of researchers led by Jerome Siegel, a professor of psychiatry at UCLA, decided to test it directly. Instead of guessing what ancestral sleep looked like, they went and measured it. They studied 3 groups of people who still live much the way humans lived for hundreds of thousands of years, without electricity, without clocks, without artificial light. The Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, the Tsimane of Bolivia. Hunter-gatherers and forager farmers, people whose nights are shaped by fire and stars, not screens. The team, with lead researcher Siegel Yetish, strapped sensors to the wrists of 94 people and recorded their sleep around the clock. More than 1,000 nights of data, real sleep, in real darkness, in the kind of world your body evolved for. And what did they find? These people, living the so-called natural life, slept on average between 5.7 and 7.1 hours a night. That is less than many people in modern cities get. The idea that our ancestors slept longer than we do turned out to be, in Siegel's own words, a myth. Let that reframe something for you. The problem was never the number of hours. So if it was not about sleeping more, what were these ancient nights actually like? This is where it gets interesting. Because the shape of the night was different, not the length. The shape. To understand it, you have to leave the hunter-gatherer camps for a moment and travel to a laboratory in the early 1990s. There, a psychiatrist named Thomas Ware ran an experiment that most people have never heard of, and it may explain what your body is doing at 3 in the morning better than anything else. Ware took a group of people and did something simple. He took away their artificial light. For a month, instead of the 14 or 16 hours of light a modern person soaks in every day, they were given only 10 hours of light and left in darkness for 14 hours each night, roughly the length of a winter night before electricity existed. At first, exhausted from modern life, they slept long and hard, catching up. But then something remarkable happened. By the 4th week, their sleep reorganized itself into a pattern none of them had chosen. They would fall asleep, sleep deeply for about 4 hours, and then wake up. They would lie awake, calm and rested for 1 to 3 hours in the middle of the night. And then they would drift into a second sleep of about 4 more hours before morning. 2 sleeps, a gap of quiet wakefulness in between. Their bodies, given a long dark night, did this on their own. Ware had not told them to do it. He had simply removed the electric light and let the ancient rhythms surface. And the wakefulness in the middle was not stressful. People described it as peaceful, almost meditative. Their bodies were flooded with prolactin, the same calm hormone released when you are relaxed and content. So here's a question worth sitting with. What if the thing you call insomnia, waking in the deep middle of the night, is not a malfunction at all? What if it is a memory? A piece of an older rhythm surfacing in a body that no longer gets the long dark nights it was built for? Now, this pattern has a name, and it comes from history, not just the lab. A historian named Roger Ekirch spent years buried in old documents. Diaries, court records, medical books, prayer manuals, novels. And he kept tripping over the same strange phrase again and again in text after text across centuries of European life. People wrote about their first sleep, and then separately they wrote about their second sleep. At first, the phrases meant nothing to him. Then it clicked. Before the modern age, before bright artificial light pushed bedtimes later and compressed the night, people did not sleep in one block. They slept in two. They would go to bed a few hours after dark. This was the first sleep, then, sometime after midnight, they would wake naturally. And for an hour or two, in the quiet dark, they would simply live. And then they would return for the second sleep until dawn. Yetish found more than 500 references to this pattern. It was not a quirk of one village or one century. It was, for a very long time, simply how human beings in these societies experienced the night. So common that writers did not bother to explain it, the same way you would not explain what breakfast is. So now, we can finally answer the real question. What did they actually do in that gap? During that hour or two of wakefulness between the first sleep and the second, when the fire was low and the world was dark and quiet, let's reconstruct it. Picture a night maybe 400 years ago, or picture a night 40,000 years ago, because the shape is the same. You have slept your first sleep. Your body wakes on its own, gently, no alarm, no jolt. The dark is total in a way you have probably never experienced, because you have almost certainly never spent a night truly without light. You are not alarmed. This is normal. This is expected. You know a second sleep is coming. So what do? The records tell us. People prayed. Whole prayer manuals were written specifically for this window, with devotions meant for the wakeful hour in the depth of night. People reflected on their dreams, still fresh, interpreting them while they were vivid. People talked quietly with whoever lay beside them. Some of the most intimate conversations of a marriage happened here, in the dark, in the gap between sleeps, when the day's noise was gone and there was nothing to do but be together. Couples made love. In fact, one old medical text of the era advised that this hour after the first sleep was the best time for it, when both people were rested rather than exhausted from a long day. Some people got up. They tended the fire. They stepped outside to check on animals. A neighbor might quietly visit a neighbor. Some brewed a drink, mended a tool, worked a little by the dim glow of embers. Others simply lay still and let their minds wander in that loose, dreamlike, unpressured way that the middle of the night allows. There was no anxiety in it. That is the peace the modern mind can barely grasp. Nobody lay there calculating how tired they would be tomorrow. Nobody reached for anything to measure the time. The waking was not stolen from sleep. It was part of the night, as natural as the pause between two breaths. And in a hunter-gatherer camp, this quiet vigilance may have done something more than fill the time. It may have kept people alive. Here we come to one more researcher and one more elegant idea. His name is David Sampson, an evolutionary anthropologist, and he studied the sleep of those same Hadza hunter-gatherers in Tanzania. He was testing something called the sentinel hypothesis. The word sentinel just means a guard, someone who stays awake and watches while others rest. The hypothesis is this. For an animal sleeping on the open ground, in a world full of predators, having everyone unconscious at the same time is dangerous. It is the moment you are most vulnerable. So it would help enormously if, at any given hour of the night, at least somebody was awake. Sampson tracked the Hadza through the night, and what he found was striking. Across the whole sleeping group over the entire night, there was almost never a moment when everyone was asleep at once. In his data, for 99.8% of the time between the first person falling asleep and the last person waking, at least one adult was awake. Not on a schedule. Nobody assigned shifts. It happened naturally because people have different internal clocks. Some go to bed early and wake early, the ones we call larks. Some stay up late and rise late, the ones we call owls. And crucially, older people tend to sleep lighter and wake earlier, while younger people stay up later. Spread that variation across a group and something beautiful emerges. The night guards itself. The grandmother who wakes at 3 sits by the fire while the young hunter who went to sleep at midnight rests. Nobody planned it. The differences in your sleep, the very things we treat as problems, may be the leftover architecture of a system that kept our ancestors safe. Think about that. The next time you feel like the only person awake at 3 in the morning, in an older world, you were not a broken sleeper. You were the sentinel. Now here comes the twist, the part that turns the whole story around. We tend to assume that progress made everything better, including our nights. But the segmented sleep, the peaceful gap, the natural rhythm, all of it did not fade away on its own. It was destroyed. And the thing that destroyed it was light. As artificial lighting spread, first gas lamps in cities, then the electric bulb, the night changed. People could stay up later. Evening became a time for activity, for work, for socializing under lamps that never existed before. Bedtimes pushed later and later. The long 14-hour night that produced 2 sleeps got squeezed into a short window of darkness. And here's the cruel part. As the 2-sleep pattern got compressed out of existence, people forgot it had ever been normal. The phrase first sleep vanished from the language within a couple of generations. And when people continued to wake in the middle of the night, as human bodies naturally do, they no longer had a name for it or a story to make sense of it. So they gave it a new name, a medical name, insomnia, a problem, a disorder, a thing to be fixed, medicated, feared. The rhythm did not disappear from your body, only from your understanding of it. Your body still tries, on some nights, to do the ancient thing, to wake in the deep middle and rest a while before sleeping again. But now, instead of lying in peaceful reflection, you panic. You check the time. You count the hours you are losing. You reach for the glowing screen, and the light itself pushes the second sleep even further away. The waking was never the problem. The fear of the waking is. So let's bring this all the way home to you tonight. The next time you wake in the dark and cannot fall back asleep, try to remember what you have just learned. Your ancestors for hundreds of thousands of years woke in that same darkness. In the sand camps and the Hadza camps that Jerome Siegel and David Sampson studied, in the villages Roger Ekirch read about, in the laboratory where Thomas Fair watched the old pattern rise from the dark, waking at night was not a sickness. It was the shape of being human. You do not have to fix it. You do not have to solve it. You can lie still in the dark and let your mind wander the way minds have wandered in that quiet hour since long before there were clocks to measure it. You can resist the urge to reach for the light, because the light is the one thing that truly breaks the rhythm. You can treat that wakeful gap not as time stolen from you, but as time that belongs to you, the oldest, quietest hour that humans have. Because here's the truth underneath all of it. Somewhere in the deep past, one of your ancestors woke in the dark exactly as you do. The fire had burned down to coals. Everyone around them was still, and they lay there, wide awake, calm, unafraid, keeping watch over the sleeping world until sleep returned on its own. You wake in the dark, and now you know you are not broken. You are just remembering how the night used to be,